Hello everyone! Today we're making chicken broth, one of my favorite recipes. And I will be making this broth with a soup chicken or soup hen and vegetable peelings and kitchen scraps. In this case here I am just cutting up the greener parts of the leek, which I had left over. You want some kind of onion element in your broth, so I'm using leek here, but of course you could use onions, onion peelings, garlic also works really well, or chives, anything oniony like that. I'm also using fennel offcuts. I think fennel adds really nice sweetness and flavor to a broth. So I don't really buy fresh vegetables for my chicken broth. I just use whatever I have left over, so offcuts and peelings, and I think that's more economical and makes more sense. And here I'm also using the stems of the mushrooms for a broth. Shiitake mushroom stems are particularly good for this, or if you go mushroom foraging, you can use the wild mushroom stems for that. As mentioned, any offcuts or peelings from garlic are particularly good in a broth. If you're growing garlic, you can also use the green part of the plant for using in the broth. So instead of using a whole carrot, I'm just using the carrot peels, which you would throw away, but you can use instead to flavor your broth. I've also got some ginger, and also the ginger skin you can use adds a really good ginger flavor to your broth. If you have turmeric, you can also use the turmeric peels. All of this just goes into the pot. I'm also putting in dried bay leaves from the garden, which add a really great flavor to the broth, so I really recommend you use it. And then any herbs you have lying around or you have growing in the garden, anything that looks a bit tired that you don't want to use for fresh cooking, you can put into the broth instead. Then I have some more vegetable offcuts and peels that were in a Tupperware in the fridge. So I usually keep Tupperware in the fridge where I put all my vegetable peels and offcuts, and then I can use them to put in the broth. You can use the same technique for any animal bones that you have, so chicken bones, beef bones, lamb, whatever, and you can either keep them in the fridge for a week or you can put them in the freezer and keep them for months. And then I've got a whole soup chicken or soup hen. So these are hens from the egg industry that after 2 years, when they don't lay as many eggs, they get slaughtered and used for making soup. So what's also great about soup chickens is that they're incredibly cheap. This chicken came from a free-range organic farm and was only €6, but it's going to add loads of flavor and going to provide lots of meat. And here I have a tray from a roasting dish, and there's still lots of good flavor and fat in there, and I'm going to put some boiling water in there to release it all and then pour it over my chicken and get all that flavor in there. So I hope by now you've realized that I'm just trying to use as many ingredients that I can that have flavor, but I can't really use for anything else, and I want to get that flavor inside my broth. So all the vegetable peels, offcuts, the leftover bones, all that stuff is to create flavor and create goodness. And then you just put your lid on the pot, and you want to cook this for a long time on a very slow heat. So you want to cook it for at least 4 hours or so, and again, yeah, on just a low temperature, just bubbling away. So this is what you have after about 4 to 5 hours. You can see everything is cooked, all the fat has risen to the top, and it looks really good. Now you have to separate everything. So first we're going to take the chicken out, which we're going to put into a bowl, and then we can take it apart later. Then we're going to sieve the broth to separate all the vegetable peelings and bones from the actual liquid. And even the bones and the vegetable peelings and offcuts won't be wasted. I will compost them, and then they will create new soil for my garden. And there we go, that's the liquid all done. A nice, clean, very tasty liquid, which is just the start of so many different dishes, and it just adds so much flavor and so much body to a lot of dishes. Usually store the broth in glass jars, and they keep in the fridge for about 1 or 2 weeks. And now you can take your chicken apart, so it should come off very easily, and the meat should fall off the bone without any problems. And as you can see, I'm also keeping the skin, so I'm putting the skin in one container and I'm putting all the meat in another container. There's lots of good meat on a chicken like this. It's not as much meat as you could get on a broiler chicken, but still a lot of very tasty meat that you can use in all sorts of dishes. You can even just use them in sandwiches or wraps, but also like in soup or curries and stews, so there's endless possibilities. And what I love about this recipe is how much food you get just from this one bird and from this broth, and you can use it in so many different ways. And one of my favorite things is to use the skin and to fry it up until it's really crisp and super tasty, and it's just delicious. So just put your skin in a hot frying pan and fry it until it's golden brown, and add some salt and pepper, and it will just be so crunchy and tasty. A bit like pork scratching, I suppose, or pork skin. And here's one thing that you can do with the broth. So we often make ramen, and homemade broth just tastes so much better with ramen. And as you can see, it looks really good. And the chicken meat makes for a really quick, nice snack. So I'm just putting it into a wrap here. So I hope you enjoyed my video, and I hope I convinced you that making your own chicken broth is not only easy, but it's cheap, tasty, and sustainable. It gives you lots of great tasting, healthy food, basically from leftovers and from one chicken. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment, and if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. Also follow us on Instagram and Facebook for regular updates. And most importantly, thanks for watching. See you next time!